Hey ho guys, it's Richard again in the Ha-Ho studio cave. I'm still with Carol and Jeanette from the previous episode. We haven't got any outside guests still, but if we do one day, I'm only joking, there's some coming soon, watch this space. We've talked about how to conduct an interview and help the guests feel relaxed, but how do you actually prep those guests for getting here? How do you get them here? How do you convince them to be a guest? What are some tips there, and what's some stuff from your...
Anybody saying no to me, but maybe Janet can answer the question.
Sheesh, it's rude. Wow. Okay, so I feel quite strongly about this because it is very easy to get a lot of objections when you send invites to people to be a guest on your podcast. And having some good answers to those objections is just going to arm you with, scenarios where that person can change their mind.
Yeah, what are some of those objections?
The number one is I don't have time. I don't have time for that. Before you've even told how much time is required, that will be the answer. Especially if it's a busy executive, someone who is a regular on a lot of podcasts, someone who is busy, that will be the first thing they will say. I'm sorry, I don't have time. So I really suggest that when you are putting together an invitation for a guest, that you outline really early on what the time commitment is going to be.
Okay.
That will eliminate that very first objection. I don't have time. If you are well organized, you can have an exec in and out of your recording session in an hour.
Yeah.
If they are doing multiple episodes with you, maybe 2 or 3 hours at a push. So if you give sufficient time to that person, say, right, we want to interview you in 3 months' time, asking for an hour or 2 in 3 months' time gives you a better chance of them saying yes. So that first objection is typically, I don't have the time.
Yeah, but it also goes a little bit further maybe than that. It's about the email you send. If you're going, hey, Rich, I know you're a super busy owner of business exec, but could you really just come hang out with us? It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
If you send a really well-written, professional email that outlines the commitments, the expectations, and also tells the reader about your podcast, where it is, how many followers, how many people are going to see this thing.
The benefits.
And give them the benefits of being on the podcast. Then they could see, oh, these guys are on Mickey Mouse. I've had it a lot where we eventually get to a guest after 20 emails and they just go, well, I thought you were a scam.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, really?
And you go, why did you think that? And it's like, well, on my email, your logo didn't come up or it went into spam. So we've learned a lot of lessons over the years to really formulate those invitations really well and to follow up with a phone call. That's your secret weapon, email, phone call. Because when you talk to someone and you can answer their questions immediately because they didn't have time to read your email, and then you can tell them, you can refer to our email, but this is what it is, or blah, 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 or this is what's expected. Do your research. If you know their office is 10 minutes away from your studio, tell them in the email.
And what about what about the time commitment required before, other than actually just the filming portion of...
Yeah. So I think once you've got buy-in for them to be a guest, the follow-up question will be, can you send me the list of questions that you're going to ask me? And if possible, you should avoid that. You don't want the guest to come with 20 questions that they are going to answer verbatim.
But why is because it comes across really stiff.
Yeah, well, I was just about to say, I suggest that in that initial invitation and in the discussions about them being a guest, you explain that it is a casual podcast conversation. It's not an necessarily an interview. I think sometimes that word can make people
So it's not an
already
interview,
feel
you're a guest on our podcast.
exactly,
It should be a
and
different thing.
I also like to send an example, a link to a video of your one of your episodes from your podcast, so they can see the style and the format. And especially if you are a sort of a more casual podcast where they're going to be able to talk in natural language about something they do every day and things they know a lot about, they're going to say yes to that much easier than if they feel like they're coming into something that's very formal, very stiff. They've got to answer all these questions. And
and you've got to remember where your guests are at, right? They may be in positions where they do a lot of press interviews. And you want to separate yourself from, well, depending on your podcast, but we're assuming now you're not a media press.
Are those generally like prepped answers, scripted beforehand?
And the reason for that is they don't want to be asked a question that is not agreed upon. Because in media or news outlets, they don't want to be asked a question that they don't want to answer.
You're going to be put on the spot.
Be put on the
They don't want to be
spot.
put on the spot.
So that's where that "can you send me the list of questions" thing comes from, is from responding to press. So there's a scandal at the thing, there's a whatever. And then you normally negotiate with the press outlet which questions you're willing to answer and which questions they must avoid. So if you spend some time on YouTube, you can Google all the times people stood up or walked out of interviews because they go off those questions list. You've got to just separate yourself from that whole sphere and say, this is what we're about. So sending the link is a really good idea, because then they get to see what kind of conversation you have, and it's not about their previous scandal or whatever. It's about you and your knowledge or whatever your podcast's about. But I think giving them the better idea is the way.
So, okay, but so not sending them the list of questions, but surely an overview of what you would be discussing, so they can just think generally about the answers to the
I don't think
questions.
that's a bad idea. You know, I think the average person just likes to be prepared. That's a natural reaction to having to be on camera or having to answer questions about a topic, even if it's a topic you know a lot about. You want to go into that with some preparation. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're interviewing me, I would want to know, we're going to be talking about websites, are we going to talk about graphic design, we've got logo design specifically, those sorts of things.
Yes, so I think you've got to strike that middle ground between giving them a list of exact questions that you're going to ask and so little context that they actually avoid and say no because they don't really know how to prepare themselves.
And we'd refer to those rather as talking points.
Right.
So we want to talk about websites. We want to talk about logo design. We want to talk about your difficulty growing up. Those are the spheres that then we agree on instead of precise questions.
Yeah. I think the whole discussion here is around making that person feel very comfortable about what's going to occur after they say yes. So the more you can set the expectations for them up front about what is going to happen once they're literally here at the desk with you, the easier it is going to be for them to say yes.
I think that's important because I think a lot of people make excuses like, it's too much time out the office, I don't have time to prep. But actually, they're just fearful of what it's going to be like there. There's going to be lights in them. It's going to be all awkward and uncomfortable.
They don't want to feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
And to Carl's point, things like interviews stir up in people this concern that they're going to be put on the spot. They're not going to want to know what to say, and they're going to be made to look a fool.
How do you know how they're going to be on the day?
So that's a really good question, especially when you're looking for an interviewee. It's a certain style or whatever it is. One of the things you can do is a pre-interview.
Okay.
So we would do that a lot with, say, documentary work. So what you do then is you do a Zoom call and you get to introduce yourself so that they also feel less intimidated. And you go through, well, this is kind of what we want to talk about, and you can do a pre-interview. Out of that, you could develop further questions. And that's probably one of the primary questions I would do in a pre-interview is when I don't know the real detail about that person's story, or I want to get a feeling about something.
And
that
when
I
you
can't
hear them
research.
talk, you can come up with other questions potentially.
Yes. And then you warn them in that, well, I'm not going to ask you the same questions I asked you in the pre-interview. It's going to be around the same subject matter, but are you comfortable talking about what you spoke about today to me?
And is this on the phone or Zoom?
I've done them on the phone, I've done them on Zoom, I've done them all over. And then you can also immediately see if the person is knowledgeable about their topic or not and can speak about it succinctly or not. Sometimes you get these experts in their fields, but they cannot string
They
a
can't
coherent
articulate it well.
question for a layman together. So
Yes.
you need to sometimes do a pre-interview then.
Yeah. But I suppose the only thing you don't get from the pre-interview is how they're going to be when there's 4 cameras and a
Yeah.
whole heap of
Yeah.
lights
Yeah.
aimed at them.
You do get a chance to talk to them about it, though. Have you ever been in front of a camera? Have you done anything like this before? So you could have kind of an idea if they're going to be worried about it or not. It's
Yeah.
like, do cameras make you nervous?
Yeah. So this actually brings me to another objection that we get very regularly. So after I don't have time, it's I don't like being on camera, or I don't like the sound of my own voice. I don't like to be recorded. I get very nervous in front of a camera. This is, in my view, very easily answered. You just get them to understand that it's okay to be uncomfortable. Everyone feels uncomfortable, even those who have done it a lot. It's something that you can say to them, you know what, that is such a natural response. It is something that feels weird initially, but we're going to be talking about a topic that is very close to what you do all
Yeah.
day. We are not going to go off on a tangent, and you're not going to be put on the spot to answer something that you can't answer. We just want to pick your brain. We want to hear from you, our listeners will be so excited to hear from you. And yes, it's going to feel weird for the first 5 minutes, but believe me, that fades away quickly because it's just you and me.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine. So, just some reassurance around that. But I tell you, that question will come up, so prepare yourself to answer it.
In my experience, I think that the fact that people don't feel comfortable actually plays a bigger role than we're even led to believe. If someone actually tells you they don't feel comfortable, at least they're self-aware. Most of the time, they don't feel comfortable, but they'll tell you that they've got no time and can't prep and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
What about people who want like a teleprompter or something like that?
Yeah, so this comes up often. Teleprompters are devices where we can put a script up on a screen behind a lens so it doesn't look like you're reading when you're talking directly into a camera. So I find explaining to the person that you're having a conversation with another human being. So if you look sideways at the camera and start talking into the camera, it would be really weird.
It doesn't really work for a podcast.
And it doesn't
No,
work.
precisely.
So if I'm addressing the audience directly, fine, you could get away with a teleprompter if the person is comfortable with doing it naturally, which 90% of people aren't. They're not
I would
trained.
say that's a bit of an art to be able to do that well.
The other thing people ask us to do with teleprompters is just put their talking points on. And then you go, but you're going to be
Yeah, it's like key cards. Yeah.
looking at, and it's just so distracting.
But I think for a podcast, you can have something on the table. Like we've got things on the table here, and you can
We've got stuff.
you can look down. So it's not you're not completely
So
just in the dark on your own.
There is a reality that even though someone's a CEO of a business, and that's their representative for the business, that they might not know all the nitty-gritty about certain aspects or things that's happening in business that we're talking about. But they're the spokesperson, so they have to be in the interview, right? So there you tell them, bring your notes, bring your whatevers, bring your assistant to listen in and tap on the director's shoulder to say, hey, he didn't say that right, can you stop? It's not live.
Yes.
It's all pre-recorded.
I'm watching Arnold Schwarzenegger's Pumping Iron right now, but I could have my talking points here.
I really believe that when you send your initial invitation, that is one of the things that has to be on that. Please note this is not a live discussion because there's a difference. People forget that for a podcast, we stop and start as we need to. You know,
Yeah.
if you say something wrong or you go down a road where you're like, no, halfway down the sentence, I don't like where it's going, you know, we can stop, we can redo that section. So, you know, this is why I really believe that the initial work, writing an email and calling them to get them to understand what they are agreeing to is the first step.
Answer
and the
all
most
their questions in that.
Yes, straight
email.
away. Yeah. You'll eliminate so many of those objections.
Yeah, and if they still continue to object after all of that, after reassuring them, after giving all the info, I would recommend to drop that person because what they're going to do is they're going to agree to doing the interview and then either cancel on you on the day before or be a no-show or be really nervous on camera to the point where you can't get them to relax.
Yes, you've convinced them to be there. They've told you ahead of time, I'm going to be terrible, and then they're terrible.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. So, and then it's your fault. It's not their fault. So
Yeah, you've pushed them too hard.
you've pushed them too
Yeah,
hard. So,
but I
so
think
don't do that.
you can maybe mitigate that to a certain degree if you have a pre-interview.
Yes.
So get a sense of how they are. But like you said earlier, the pre-interview only gives you so much because there's no cameras.
Yeah.
They're not on the set. It's a little bit
there's
different.
a
They
stress
will be
element
more
that
relaxed.
is,
Yeah.
is removed in the
Yeah.
pre-interview.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. We've got some great interviews coming up with some cool guests. Be sure to subscribe, smash that like button, and we will see you guys soon. Cheers.